It is hard to believe that August 1st, my husband and I will celebrate our 14th year together. Like, it's unfathomable for me. We have been together 14 years and we have been married for 5. This is our 5th wedding anniversary. We decided to have both of our anniversaries on the same day because it's easier to remember. And we will celebrate a huge milestone on August 1st. And you know, I have a lot of questions that come at me all the time about how we met. And I've never really talked about it. I have blogged about it. And if you want to check that out, go to NolaPapa.com. And it's, you know, down about a year ago or something. And it is an interesting story. And I thought that I would talk about it because 14 years, that's a long time. And it's a milestone. Like, it's a little more than just a milestone. This is, you know, we're in the teens now. Like, it really feels legit. And I love it. But, you know, looking on people's Instagrams and their Facebook and, you know, and mine, you know, I try to be as real as I can when it comes to writing about how I feel, talking about how I feel. And on Instagram, you know, there's beautiful pictures and there's captions that are just perfect. That's what Instagram's about. Now, there are some real topics that I hit straight on, and I find that's very important. But, you know, there is nitty-gritty stuff that happens. And y'all know, in any marriage, there's things that happen that really shake you to your core. And a lot of times those things are not really like put out on your balcony for everybody to look at, you know? I mean, this is it's a very personal and sensitive area. And, you know, I haven't really talked about it too much. Like I said, I had a blog about it. But, you know, we live in New Orleans, and there's a certain vibe in this city. And there's, you know, I'm almost 40, so we've been around. And we've went around to many cities, and there's nowhere like New Orleans. And to meet here, I mean, the story of like attraction, voodoo, and babies, like it's fascinating, and I want to talk about it. Welcome back. Let's do it.
My name is Eric, and if there's one thing that life has taught me, it's that everything happens for a reason. All the twists and turns and everywhere in between. This is NolaPapa, the story of a gay dad.
So August 1st will be our 14th year together, and it just makes me want to reminisce about days gone by and what it was like back then. It's hard for me to continue forward in our day-to-day life and not be appreciative of those initial days, months, and years so long ago. And you know, we had our babies only 4.5 years ago, so we've been together a good long time before we brought babies into our lives. And I remember, you know, because I worked out on Bourbon Street. I worked at a very famous gay bar on Bourbon Street, and I was the door guy. And I loved my job. I back then I was cocky. It was like, I want to slap myself now, like as I think back on, me at the door, checking IDs and all this and that. And I don't know, it was my first real exposure to the gay scene. And I was, living my new true self. And, I was not popular in high school, and I now have found this comfort in myself and living who I felt on the inside and being able to live it on the outside. And that, to me, today even, is so important. And anyway, so I worked on Bourbon Street, and it was a life that I would never go back to today. But looking back on it, I'm really thankful and grateful that I was able to experience these life lessons, because I was wild. I was buck wild, y'all. Like Bourbon Street does not close. I mean, we live in a COVID world right now. So yes, Bourbon Street is actually closed. But, before the virus, Bourbon Street does not close. Like, there were many nights that turned into mornings. And when I got off of work, I would drink and do other things. And I would party my butt off. And that was the lifestyle. And, there were really valuable lessons that I was able to learn from, and to know that was not me. And I know this. And I was able to adjust my life in where I am today. And, it's those fundamental things that really allow you to grow. You hear Shane. I thought he would be okay where he was, but he is not. I was living this life, and it was so exciting. I was working on bourbon, and I had been working on bourbon for like 5 years, and maybe not 5, like 4 years. But in 2005, Katrina came, and it changed everybody's way of life. We thought that New Orleans wasn't even coming back. I had gone to LA and just didn't think that New Orleans was going to come back, but she did. And I came back to New Orleans because there's nowhere like New Orleans. There's nowhere. And I, got a new job at another club across the street. And I remember walking into the office, and I was in charge of getting emails from the patrons to, be on the email list. And I was like the guest list guy. And I, had my clipboard, and I had the pen, and I would write down everybody's name. And I walked into the office, and as soon as I walked into the office, I opened the door, and he was sitting at a counter filling out paperwork, new hire paperwork. And he looked up, and he looked at me, and I looked at him at the same time, and our eyes met, and they were locked together, and it felt like time stopped. Like the You could hear the tss, tss, tss on the dance floor. You could smell the stale cigarette smoke. It was like the air was sucked out of the room, and my heart started beating real fast. And we kind of gave each other a smile, and I knew at that moment, like, I wanted him to be my man. And he actually felt the same way, and we became inseparable. Like, he was staying at a hostel, like, at the same time the horror movie Hostel was out, and I didn't know it. I guess I've stayed at 2 hostels in Europe, but at that point, a hostel to me was the movie, and I was like, oh no, you need to come and stay with me. And he did not stay at that hostel anymore, and he was fresh into New Orleans from Arizona, and we became glued together. And I remember the feeling of the inseparableness, and looking at him while he was asleep. I know that sounds cheesy, but like, there was all a beginning. There was a beginning before that happened. And it was when, like, I had just been back to town from LA, and this is right after Katrina, and I knew that I did not want to live in LA anymore. And I went to the bar, and I was so sad. I felt lonely. I felt like my life, I had just lost my brother, in 2002. And Katrina came in 2005. I mean, even in 2003, my house burnt down and I lost like everything. So it was like bam, bam, bam. All these really terrible things happened. And I just felt drained, alone, lonely, despair, like all of these sad emotions. And I was day drinking. I went to the bar at like 3 o'clock, and they were having a drag rehearsal for the show. And I was at the bar, and this drag queen came up to me, and I called her Aunt Vicky. And my nickname back then was Max. And a lot of people still call me Max. And, and I welcome it. It's a really neat chapter in my life. And I love that they still call me Max. But, I'm Eric. And that's what, for the past 15 years, that's what I now, it's my name. People call me. So she comes up to me and she saw that I was sad. And at this point in time, I had blonde hair that kind of like wisped out, kind of like Bon Jovi, kind of like, almost kind of like Rachel from Friends. It kind of like wisped out like that. And it came to about right here. And I was super sad. And I just didn't know what or where my life was going. It was very depressing. I didn't want to be alone. And every night I would go home alone, and I knew that there had to be something more. Because, being on bourbon, you meet some cool people, but they're kind of like fair weather friends. Like they come in and then they leave. They wave in and they wave out. There's not like, a consistency of having, true friends. You meet maybe one or two, but for the most part, they're there for what they can get and then they move on. And me having, kind of like a high profile gig out there, I found that people would use me. People would, try to just get what they could get and they would move on. And it hurt. So I was at the bar and Aunt Vicky came up and she said, "Maxie, you look sad." And I said, "Well, Aunt Vicky, I am." And she says, "Why are you sad?" And I said, "Well, I'm lonely. I don't want to be lonely anymore. I don't know where my life is going." And she said, "Well, let me cut some of your hair." And I said, "What?" Because, I had the hair down to here. That was my look. I did wear a beret. It was like, this is, my adulting hat. But back when I was a kid, I wore a beret and I had it backwards and I had pins all over it. And so, I had the hair with the beret and I was like, "What? You want my hair?" And she was like, "Yeah, baby, just a little bit. Give me a lock." And so she got some scissors and she cut off a lock about that long, maybe about that long. And she said, "I just need it. I'm gonna do something tonight." And I said, "What are you gonna do, Aunt Vicky?" And she said, she gave me a smile and she gave me a wink and she said, "A little New Orleans voodoo." And I was like, okay. So she cut that lock of hair and she wrapped it up, and I don't know what the hell she did, but she went back to her house, and that night she did something, and she, today, 2 weeks later, I met Douglas at the job. And today, my last name was changed when we got married to to Eric Alexander. I took his last name. And she told me that in 2 weeks' time, I would meet the love of my life. And she lived on Alexander Street. And 2 weeks after she did that, I met Douglas. So I firmly believe, and whatever she did, it's real. She called it voodoo. If it's voodoo, okay, I believe in voodoo. I definitely do believe in some voodoo. New Orleans voodoo. Now, there are some other areas that I care not to discuss right now in this video. And if you would like to know what those untold details are, check it out. I'll have a link, I'll have a link for you if you want to read about it. I have it all disclosed in that blog piece. I don't want to talk about it right now. But Douglas and I met, and it was like love at first sight. And I thank the universe and God and everything that came together, like the stars aligning for our paths to meet. And, there's a lot of hopeless messages that I get from people. And, people see that, our little life and how beautiful it is with these babies. There are things that happen behind the door, behind the scenes that aren't beautiful. And that's how life is. It's nitty, it's gritty. It's not beautiful all the time. And, in response to the messages that I get that, people are hopeless because they haven't met the love of their life and they want children and they can't have it because they haven't found the love of their life. I tell each of you that haven't been able to be as blessed as I have yet, to hold true to what you believe. Have faith in what you want. To be kind to other people. To be honest. And learn from your mistakes. Because it's the things that happen that shake you because you've done something wrong. It's those teachable moments that allow you to see what you can do better about yourself. It's that personal inventory for you to know that you can be a nicer person, that you can have more patience, that people deserve that. Strangers deserve that. You don't know what that stranger is going through. And that stranger doesn't know what you're going through. But if you meet that stranger with a smile and you talk to them, you could change the whole trajectory of where that person is going. There was time and time again when I worked out at the club and I met someone. This happened multiple times. And they were out, because you go to Bourbon Street to get buck wild, right? And some people go to Bourbon Street to not go home. Some people go out to party to never stop. And I remember talking to some people, different instances, and they were about to kill themselves, whether it be with drugs or whatever example. And I remember talking and becoming momentarily friends with them. And I felt great pride in what I did on Bourbon. I genuinely wanted to help people. Just like I genuinely want to help people now with the platform that I have. I mean, I've said it so many times, one person can change the world. I know that I am just one person, but if I can help one person out there, then that person can help someone else, and that person can help someone else. And it's a domino effect, and it goes, and we all are in it together. And we have the responsibility, the opportunity to change the world. And, we're plagued today with politics and divisive banter that really divide families, friendships, people. And it's when we look beyond that. It's when you want to do better. That's when your stars align. That is when it happens. I mean, it might not be voodoo for you. And as far as I know, it could have not been voodoo for me. But there was just too many damn coincidences for me to overlook some New Orleans voodoo. But it was when and this is after Douglas and I were together. This, because we went through some turbulent times. I mean, turbulent times. And it took years. But in 2014, I had to come to Jesus. And, I knew that I was better than what I was putting off to the world. And I made a vow to myself that I was going to be a better person. And it was when I made that vow. Yes, Douglas and I got together in 2006, but our babies didn't come until 2015. And it was when I really firmly believed this. It was when I put my own selfish desires away and I had faith that we were going to have a family. I claimed it. I knew it. And, it happened. We're a success story, and I know there are heartbreaking stories out there, but don't become cynical or jaded or lose hope or faith. Like, always hold true to what you want most. And it's like you water your garden. You water your garden on a really hot day. And then you bring those flowers in that aren't in the ground inside when it's cold. Like you treat your dreams like you would your flowers. And when you do that, they will blossom. And they will grow, and they will be the most beautiful flowers you've ever seen. And I'm here to tell you, because it happened to me. And if it can happen to me shaking my ass on Bourbon Street, at a gay bar, checking IDs, it can happen to you. Don't lose the faith. Keep your head up. You keep your cheeks high. And you smile. And that's when your flowers blossom. Until next time, Nola love.